These Chrysler remote controls can be a little tricky to hook up. The manuals aren't real good at telling you step by step how to do it, so I'm going to attempt to here. This is my little 45 horsepower, and the setup is basically the same adjustments and everything on these guys and the bigger ones out there too. So let me run through what's what here. Okay, the cables on these guys are a little bit weird compared to the Mercs and OMC products. The ends of the cables go here and here on these studs. The upper level one here being the throttle linkage, and the one down below here being the shifter. And then the sheath of the cables go in these clamps here and here. That's a little bit weird. And if you notice, when you're running one of these things and you move the handle, the cables actually will telescope out of the housing and back. They do that in a sneaky way to reverse the motion, I do believe. It's a bit of a weird thing. So right at the moment I've got the motor set so that it's all the way back in idle position. The idle screw right here is against the block, and you'll notice the throttle block is sitting right in this window between the finger and here. Now the big motors is a little bit different, but it essentially does the same thing. So now you can only come a little bit up off of idle when it's setting in neutral. This is to keep you from doing anything stupid like over revving the engine by bumping the handle. So if you shift it into gear, then that tang is free to move. And you can probably hear when I put this back, hear that click? Well, that's the starter inhibit switch, which is right here. Now some of them, the starter inhibit switch is actually on the, well, this being a two-cylinder doesn't have a distributor, but this switch is actually up on the distributor, but it does the same thing. And there's a couple of variations as to where this switch actually is, but they all do the same thing. And you notice the peak of this cam here in neutral is setting right on that button. Okay, now let's look at the control for a bit. This one has the switch in the control rather than up on the dash. See if I can get this stupid thing to focus. There we go. So that's off, and that's run, and that's start. These don't have an accessory position. Generally the ones in the box don't. The ones that go up on the dash, you can't have an accessory position in those. And this is, it shifts into gear right about there, and then that's forward, and then it shifts into gear right about there, and then that's reverse. Now you may wonder what this little knob down here is. Well, what that knob does, when you pull it out, it disconnects the shifter mechanism inside of here. So you only get throttle and no shift for like warm up. So if you want to put it up a little bit and warm up, it won't shift it into gear because it won't move the shift cable. Now here's the back of a box. This is actually the box off of this boat that it's sitting on, but this one's getting a flush mount when I put it back together. Okay, lever sitting in the neutral idle position. This lever should be all the way forward. This lever is normally down, but I think you could actually assemble it so it's up, but I would go with down. No, you can't. So this thing actually needs to be down. Notice which way this pivot is around. That's important. The clamp part should be toward the back. This actually will turn. The shifter cable is held in place by this phenolic board, which also, when you have a ignition switch in here, which this one doesn't have because it's on the dash, it has some extra terminals on here for the wires. And same deal here. You start moving this, and that is the shift into gear right about there. Forward, shift into gear right about there. In reverse, and even though it goes further than that, it doesn't really put it in the gear any further. And if I can pull out the warm-up knob, you notice when I move it now, it doesn't shift, so it stays in neutral, and that will let you bring the throttle up a little bit. But because of that blocker that's on the cable, on the throttle tower over there, it will kind of keep you from over-revving the engine and doing anything dumb. So let's go hook up the cables and show that. When you're connecting these things, hook the shifter, this lever, up first, because it's the hardest one to get to. Leave the end off down here, and then push this all the way as far as you can, and then you can just get the screwdriver down in there enough to tighten it, and then put this end on, and then come back and get the throttle in its block with this little indentation here resting right in that groove. Then hook this end on. We'll talk about this bulge right here in just a minute. This is one of the tricks in this setup here, the spring-loaded lost motion link that's right here in this sleeve. So I've got this snapped on, and when you snap these on, make sure these little metal covers come all the way back, or one might pop off and leave you sitting. And then you have to pull it back and lock it in like that, and you see how this is extended. And now I need to put the screw in there, so I need two hands. So let me do that, and then I'll come back and show you how this should be adjusted. Okay, first little adjustment check. You notice I've got the shift linkage setting in neutral. It's here in the gate, and the cam is right on the button on the switch. The lever is right in the detent, and you notice I'm coming up short. This cable needs to be longer. I had this set up on this engine a while and I didn't notice this. So need to take the lock nut off right there and turn this out, and you need to leave about 5 or 6 threads on here as a minimum, and if you don't get enough adjustment there, there's always the ends in here that you can back off on. So let me do that. Okay, now you want to get the shifting setup centered, and as I said, you can adjust this back and forth here to get that. But since all of these mechanisms have some slop in them, what you want to do is go all the way this way, come back to the click in the center, the detent. In this, you'll feel it, and then see if you're centered. Well, it's a little bit off. It's up about 3 millimeters, I guess, maybe a little less than that. And then go back the other way and go forward slowly back to the detent and feel, yeah, it's off about the same way. So if this is not, sitting in the middle where the slop is equally distributed on both sides, your switch may not get pushed properly every time, or even the transmission may not come all the way out of gear, and that's a bad thing. So that's one thing you want to adjust, is compromise this adjustment to get this in the center, considering the slop you're going to have to deal with. Actually, this box I'm using right here has got a little more slop in it than average. I've gotten them misadjusted before, and say the thing wouldn't start, and basically what I would do is go like that and click, switch, it would recenter itself. Just go like that and it would recenter itself and start right up. So if you have to do a lot of noodling with that, you don't have this setting, exactly where it needs to be to average out the slot between the two sides. Now on to the throttle linkage. You probably noticed that there's a lot of dead motion in this linkage, and that's intentionally so that the throttle linkage can catch up. The throttle linkage can move first before this does. So watch what it does as I go from neutral forward. You see, throttle's not moving, the throttle's not moving, the throttle's not moving. Throttle moves right there. So now the transmission is all the way in gear. Same here. Put it back here, and now it's free. Okay, watch the same deal. It goes all the way back, and it just starts moving right there. So now it's in reverse. So you'll find that you can actually, when this length is right, you can actually pull the hole in this end about 1/8 of an inch past this ball, and then snap it on. Okay, watch when I pull it off. See how it goes back? You can see how close it is, and I'm setting on my throttle stop right there. That's how long it is, you see? And now, well, I can't put this back on with one hand, so excuse me. Okay, back on. And then we can give it a little test just to make sure that you're getting full throttle. Alright, the box has more range than the linkage does, so it shouldn't bind up in the box first. So go all the way over. You notice right up there, you see the bumper on the tower shaft. Right there, the throttle stop bumper hit. I have no extra play up here, and if you look close, you can see, I don't know if I can hold the phone that steady. No, you can't. If you put a little extra pressure on the bracket, on the lever, you can actually see this bracket move just a teeny bit, and then you know you're all the way out. Now, of course, in reverse, that's not true because you're blocked from applying full throttle in reverse. Okay, I'm shifted all the way in reverse, and you see the shift linkage actually comes all the way over and stops moving right before the throttle starts taking up. And that's all the throttle you get. If you look back here on the sector, see that's neutral in reverse, that's shifted in reverse all the way in right there, and then it picks up right there. And that's pretty much the secret to this. Oh yeah, these Chryslers, other than this special end and this ball socket end, and on the other side, as you saw in the earlier video segment, it just has two pin couplers that go through the holes in the levers. The ends are the only special thing. These are just standard 33, 3300, 33,000 series type cables. And the only difference in those numbers is not how they fit up and the length of them, it's what they're made of here, the outside diameter, and whether they're premium cables or not. Otherwise, mechanically, they're all the same. And if you want to know how to adjust this guy, look in my video for the big motor, other than the 105, because other than not having a second carburetor up here, the linkage setup is exactly the same to get this, to adjust this and adjust this screw, which is eccentric. To really get your throttle working properly, you got to have all of that working. So now sitting here like it is, this length is adjusted correctly. We know it's going all the way into gear before the throttle picks up. We know, because we adjusted this, that all of our slop is centered up, and we can pretty much reliably get the neutral switch pushed in when the handle is in neutral. And we know our throttle, because we're setting in neutral, is against the block, and we know, because we previously adjusted the throttle and timing linkage, that we're sitting on the mark right here where we should be at idle. The roller is free, doesn't have any pressure against it. We got this link adjusted right for the throttle coordination, and we got this link up here adjusted right for the timing. So everybody's happy. And I hope you all found that useful. And the throttle linkage on the bigger motors, same setup. Little slight differences in wherever the things are and exactly how this lever is bent and all that, but it all connects up and adjusts the same way.